The Michigan Man Podcast, episode 126. Well-rested and with plenty of practice time to work on mistakes, the Wolverines are ready for their trip to West Lafayette. Today, we preview the Big Ten opener with Purdue.
Oh man, Euchre's been broadcasting for 27 years. I have never seen anything like this. They need 2 inches. Dennis Franklin, the quarterback, taking a long con from center. He hands off to Shuttlesworth 5, and it's down to the end zone. Touchdown! Touchdown, Dennis Franklin! Oh my God, Dennis Franklin fooled everybody. He fooled me. He fooled the entire Ohio State team. Kneeling is Larry Gustafson. Attempting will be Super Toe. Super Toe will kick the 30-yard field goal. It's kicked to send over there. It's a tied-up ball game. 10-10. Okay. Under center is Wangler at the 45. He goes back. He's looking for a receiver. He throws downfield to Carter. Look at those Wolverines. 95 Wolverines. Going to the end zone. Carter's got the pass. In the air, it's done. Buford is going out of his mind. I have never seen anything like this in all my 40 years of covering Michigan football.
This is the Michigan Man Podcast. On GBMW Go Blue Michigan Wolverine, for Wolverine fans from coast to coast. Go Blue and welcome to this week's show. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. Coach Brady Hoke said Monday at his presser that he's never sure what a good bye week is or when it's not a good bye week. He said it is good in the sense it gives the team a chance to reevaluate where you are and what you want to do. He said that goes for not only the players, but also for the coaches. One thing he does know is that the Wolverines must cut back on the costly turnovers on offense, get the running game going, and continue to balance that out with a more consistent passing attack. On defense, Coach Hoke said he is seeing growth, but the D needs to be more aggressive, especially in forcing turnovers. So with 2 weeks to work on all of those things, we will hopefully see signs of progress this week in West Lafayette. The Purdue Boilermakers are off to a 3-1 start this season. The only blemish was a last-second loss and a tough one to Notre Dame in South Bend. Beat writer Mike Carmen from the Journal and Courier in Lafayette is on deck to get us up to speed on Coach Danny Hope and the Boilers. After that, on Michigan Gameday, we'll be joined by John Borton, the longtime editor of the Wolverine, with his thoughts on Michigan's Big Ten opener. So up next on our visitor segment, we'll hear from the guy who covers Purdue Weekly, Mike Carmen from the Journal and Courier in Lafayette. Here on the Michigan Man Podcast on GBMW Go Blue Michigan Wolverine. Joining us on our visitor segment today is Mike Carmen, who covers Purdue for the Journal and Courier in Lafayette. Mike, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me today.
You had a wild one Saturday down there at Ross-Ade Stadium, maybe more points put on the board than everyone thought with that really, really tough Purdue defense. But the Boilers improved to 3-1. Coach Danny Hope said after the game it wasn't pretty, but it was a win. So your thoughts on that game Saturday?
Well, it's kind of a strange game to assess because I'm not sure Purdue will face an offense like that through the Big Ten season. Now, there's some good offensive teams in the Big Ten, but none that I don't anticipate throwing 68 times against Purdue's defense. So you kind of have to look at Saturday's game against Marshall and kind of move it off into a category of its own because they're just not probably going to see that type of passing performance and that type of quarterback that they saw Saturday. So they gave up a lot of yards. They gave up to their offense. They gave up 34 points because Marshall got a blocked punt for a score. But in the big picture, they held Marshall below some of their season averages. So I think they take away some good things from the game, but obviously some things to clean up since we're not even at the halfway point of the season yet.
Well, absolutely. And the most important thing, as Coach Hope said, it's a W.
Yeah, I mean, this program has struggled in this type of game his first 3 years. They've lost to Northern Illinois, Toledo, and Rice. They haven't been 3-1 in the non-conference season since 2007. So, I think this year they've taken a step forward in that regard.
Well, Mike, Michigan's faced two really good defenses so far this year in Alabama and Notre Dame. And we know this weekend we're going to see another really strong unit in the Boilermakers. So let's talk about this defense, starting in the trenches with Kawan Short, Bruce Gaston, and Ryan Russell. Are they as good as advertised?
Well, I think they are right now. I mean, I think that they are. They're getting a good push. Mr. Short had some nice tackles for loss yesterday, and he was able to overwhelm Marshall's offensive line at times. Gaston is, both those guys are just plugging the gaps in the middle, and they're forcing teams to run outside. It's kind of pointless to try to go up the middle against Purdue because of those two big bodies. And then Ryan Russell, on defense, he's dealing with an MCL sprain in his right knee. He did play yesterday. Made some plays, but he probably needs another week or two to get back to 100%. But the strength of this team, we thought coming into the season, was the defensive line, and they really haven't disappointed. They've carried the defense, and they were able to cause some havoc yesterday and help Purdue get 3 interceptions, and 2 of those went for touchdowns. So they're as good as advertised right now. And
Kawan Short is probably the best down lineman in the conference, isn't he?
Yeah, he's pretty strong, and the one thing he's doing now is he's playing probably at 100% effort every play. And now he's playing less plays, at least in the first 3 games of the season. He was playing less plays, but he's more effective because he goes hard on every down. He doesn't pace himself. He goes out. He goes all out every play, and they have some depth on the defensive line, and that's helped them to be more productive on the defensive line. They kind of have taken a page from the New York Giants defensive line, where they've created a lot of depth. They're using the depth, and they feel like they get better production from everybody by rotating those players in.
Has Coach Hope been fairly pleased with the linebacker play so far this year?
Yes and no. They've gone unnoticed, which I think is a good thing for this team right now, because they lost Dwayne Beckford, their second leading tackler. He was dismissed from the team prior to the season, and they didn't have a lot of experience there. They've got a converted quarterback playing over there in Sean Robinson, another guy in Antoine Higgs who hasn't played much in his career, and he's a senior. Joe Gilliam has kind of taken over that the middle linebacker spot. He's performed okay, but I'm not sure they've really been challenged from a run or a pass standpoint. I'm curious to see how many Big Ten teams will try to isolate tight ends on them or receivers on them or backs out of the backfield in pass coverage. And I don't think we've seen a whole lot of that yet, and be curious moving forward what happens in that regard.
Well, for the Boilers in the secondary, Ricardo Allen and Josh Johnson, probably the best 2 corners of the Big Ten. Tell us about their play in the rest of that secondary through the first 4 games.
Well, they are. The cornerbacks have been good ever since they stepped on campus. Ricardo's received a lot of hype, and justifiably so. He came in pretty highly regarded. He's undersized, but he fights you, and he fights you hard. and it's a battle every time that he's going up for a pass with the receiver. And Josh, if it's possible, he lives in Ricardo's shadow a little bit. He's bigger than Josh, and he's probably more physical than Ricardo, but he's a fighter too, and he's having a great year. He broke up 4 passes at Notre Dame early this year. He had a pick 6 yesterday. He broke up a couple more passes. He's very active, and he's really playing his best ball right now. He's a senior, and you can tell the years of maturity and growth have really affected him, and he's just playing really well right now.
Our guest on our visitor segment today is Mike Carmen, who covers Purdue for the Journal and Courier in Lafayette. Let's take a look, Mike, from the offensive perspective right now. Caleb Turbush probably had his best outing on Saturday. When Robert Marve returns, and I know he started to practice again last week, but when he comes back from that ACL injury, is there going to be a sharing of time or any kind of a quarterback controversy?
Well, we're still trying to figure out exactly if Robert Marve can come back, and if he does, just how effective he's going to be. Turbush is going to be the starter, and Turbush is going to get a majority of the reps. Once Robert Marve got hurt, that kind of settled down things where they were not rotating quarterbacks in as much. We've just kind of put Marv over to the side right now and let him sit there. He did not dress out yesterday. I don't know if he'll dress out for the Michigan game or at what point this season he will. There's a question of just how effective he'll be back there. He's his third knee injury. His lateral movement's not very good. And that's kind of part of his game. He likes to scramble and get outside the pocket, so I don't know how effective he'd be. But Turbush did have his best game of the year. He threw for 294 yards, only missed on 10 passes, had 4 touchdown passes. Now, again, this is against Marshall. It's one of the worst defenses in the country. But he needed a game like that to just boost his confidence and go into Big Ten play on a high note, because he had struggled. He had a good first half at Notre Dame, but then came out in the third quarter and threw a bad interception that Notre Dame eventually kicked a field goal and built a 10-point lead. He had an okay game against Eastern Michigan, but he just needed a big game to give himself some confidence as they get into this grueling stretch here in the Big Ten.
Now, what about the running game? Ralph Bolden, I know, has been injured. How has the running game been shaping up so far this year?
Well, Ralph hasn't played yet. We thought we might see him yesterday, but that didn't happen, and we don't know if we'll see him against Michigan. The one disappointing thing from the Marshall game is that Purdue only averaged 2.8 yards per carry, and Marshall ranks 112th in the nation in run defense. And Purdue's having some issues on the offensive line right now. They're not, although Turbush was sacked just once yesterday. Marshall had 9 tackles for loss. There's some protection issues there, and not being able to establish a good run game against that bad of a defense, I think is a big concern in the Big Ten, because you're going to see much better defenses and much more physical defenses, just based on watching the parts of games and the highlights from the first week of the Big Ten. We all know it's a much more physical league, and defenses are going to get after you on the line. And in order for Purdue to continue its winning ways and be a factor in any of these Big Ten races, they have to be able to be balanced on offense, and they've got to be able to run the ball, because, as you know, and anybody knows, you get in the Big Ten and you become one-dimensional. It's not a good thing, and you usually find yourself on the short end of scores every Saturday.
Well, pass protection and turnovers, I know Coach Hope said going into the season, were a point of emphasis for the team, and in the early going, there have been problems with both of those things. What's attributing to that? Is it more injuries in the trenches, or there's just a lot of inexperience too?
Well, they did lack some experience coming in, but they haven't had any injuries up front. The only injured guy is their left guard, Peters Dry. He missed the last 5 or 6 games in 2011 with a back injury, and they've kind of limited time through his camp and through the first 4 games. So, and I talked to him a couple weeks ago, and he seemed to be doing fine. It probably comes down to just a bit of a talent issue. They have some raw kids there, some athletic kids, but just they probably need more time. And they've got a lot of practice time together. There's no question about that because they settled on their top 6 or 7 linemen really early in camp. So they've been getting the players the reps. They have a newcomer at right guard, a JUCO transfer, Devin Smith, who's feeling his way around. But it's a concern. It just really is. And Turbush took some hits yesterday and had to throw before he wanted to. And I just think Big Ten teams are going to get after you a little bit harder, and that's just going to be a big area for Purdue to watch moving forward.
Mike, any new injuries coming out of the Marshall game?
None that we aware of as of right now. That's one thing that is, other than Robert Marv, Purdue's been healthy. I mean, I think people know their history at the quarterback position with the number of injuries they've had over the last few years and the number of quarterbacks they've had to play. But I think right now they should be pretty healthy for Saturday's game.
Well, scouting the game on Saturday, then, Mike, on defense, from what you've seen this year, is this defense one that can, shut down Denard in the same way maybe as an Alabama and a Notre Dame did and make Michigan find other ways to move the chains?
Well, first of all, Purdue's talent level is not at Alabama or Notre Dame. So the quick answer to that would be no. But Purdue can do some things to disrupt Denard. And, history will tell you that Denard is going to throw an interception or two. So Purdue's going to have an opportunity for potential pick six, or at least flip field position, or give their offense a great chance to score. I think with Denard, and it's no secret, you want him to throw the ball, and Purdue's going to try to do that. Every team that plays Denard Robinson wants him to throw the ball. He's just not that accurate of a passer. He gets happy feet back there, and history tells you that once he has one turnover, the second one's probably coming along the way. So one thing Purdue doesn't want him to do is run. They're going to try to keep him in the pocket. How they do that? Do they, try to cover the receivers well and just let the front four do their work, or do you bring some pressure? So it'll be an interesting matchup, but I think it's clear what has to happen. Purdue's going to try to make him a thrower. And if he's successful doing that, you just kind of tip your cap and move on.
I think you're right, and that's pretty much been the game plan of everyone we've played so far this year. On defense, Michigan has struggled all season until the Notre Dame game last week, where they made strides, at least we think they did, against the Fighting Irish. What problems will this Purdue offense pose for Michigan, in your opinion?
Right now, I don't think the running game poses that big of a threat, but if things come together this week and they're able to make some key blocks, Purdue can stay on the field with their running game. The one thing that Purdue's offense is going to do is they're not going to throw the ball deep that much. They're going to get the ball to their wide receivers and let them run. They have a quick group of wide receivers. They're not very tall, and they're just going to try to get them the ball. They scored on a jailbreak screen yesterday. They went for 35 yards. Turbush was able to connect on some open receivers, and part of that was just Marshall's defense and their young secondary. They were lost at times, and I'm not sure Michigan's defense is going to be that lost. One thing Purdue hasn't done is utilize the tight end as much the last few games, so that may come into play. So, it's a good offense, not a great offense. It's just a matter if Michigan can get some pressure on Turbush and force him into some bad decisions.
It appears, at least right now, looking ahead to the game, it's Denard against that really stout Purdue defense, and Caleb Turbush and Purdue against Michigan's youth on defense, trying to exploit a lot of the young players are going to be seeing Saturday. So, looking at it right now, what do you see as the keys for Purdue to victory on Saturday?
They have to generate some offense. They have to and be consistent offense, and they have to limit their turnovers. But as I said before, I think they have to make Denard a passer. And if they can force him to throw the ball more than he wants to, more than Michigan wants to, then as these things come down to, there's a special teams play here, a special teams play there. Purdue had a punt blocked yesterday, missed an extra point. They've missed 4 extra points, and I'm not sure they've missed 4 extra points combined in the last 4 or 5 years. So those little things like that always seem to pop up. Michigan has, they've beaten the people they should. They've, probably lost to the people they should. But both teams are starting Big Ten play in this league this year. You got to take advantage of every opportunity that that's in front of you. I mean, we saw this week that Wisconsin had a big lead on Nebraska and then let that slip away. How much will that hurt Wisconsin as we get farther down in this race, that they blew a 17-point lead on the road? So, it's going to be some of the little things that each team's going to have to take care of. And, Purdue's at home. They got momentum. They should be coming out strong, and it'll be interesting to see how this all plays out.
Such a great start for the Boilermakers so far, Mike. 3-1 and really just one drive away from being 4-0, losing on the final minutes to Notre Dame in South Bend. Is there a lot of excitement amongst the fan base for Purdue and anticipation for this game Saturday?
Call it a slow burn, where it's like you put the chili on, you leave it on for 8 hours, and at the end it's bubbling. I think. The good start has caught some attention, but not a whole lot. I think the win over Michigan, and they host Wisconsin the week after that. I think a big buzz will start to gain. Purdue's still in a phase of their program after Joe Tiller where you have to show me. It seems like they have to continue to prove themselves every week. And granted, their non-conference schedule was not difficult, other than playing at Notre Dame because they, Eastern Kentucky, Eastern Michigan hasn't been very good lately, and then Marshall, while they're a dynamic offense, they're just atrocious on defense. So, I think a win over Michigan really would probably get the fan base excited because it's a marquee name, and it's a very good team. And so right now they're just kind of waiting, to see what happens. Man, it's the kind of game that for Coach Danny Hope would probably be a signature win, wouldn't it? It would be a signature win right now at this stage. They've got other opportunities ahead of them. Every Big Ten team has this stretch since Nebraska came in the league where you look at their schedule and you're like, oh my, you have to play this team, that team, and this other team all right in a row. Purdue's grueling stretch is Michigan, Wisconsin, Ohio State to start the Big Ten season. That's it. Not that the other 5 games, it won't be challenging, but just on paper, when you're looking at the type of programs that you're playing, Purdue starts out of the gate. They have a chance to really send a message that they're here to compete for a chance to play in Indianapolis in the Big Ten title game. And they can't be 0-3 if they're going to challenge. They have to win at least one of these first 3 games in order to put themselves in position down the line to maybe either win the Leaders Division or at least be in position to be the representative based on the 2 ineligible teams right now. Both teams have a lot to prove and a lot to gain as we open the Big Ten season. Our guest on the show today has been Mike Carmen, who covers Purdue for the Journal and Courier in Lafayette. Mike, thanks for joining us. Thank you for having me.
Thanks again to Mike Carmen for coming back on the show this year. Mike is the Purdue beat writer for the Journal and Courier in Lafayette. Up next is our Michigan Gameday segment, and our guest will be longtime editor of the Wolverine, John Borton. That's right here on the Michigan Man podcast on GBMW Go Blue, Michigan Wolverine. Our guest on our Michigan Game Day segment this week is John Borton, editor of the Wolverine. John, thanks for joining us.
Great to be with you.
Well, John, this week down in West Lafayette, the Big Ten opener, still very early in the season, but would you say it's fair to classify this game as pivotal for Michigan, or are we, getting a little ahead of ourselves?
No, I don't think so at all. I think this is an absolutely critical game for Michigan to be able to start the Big Ten with a win on the road would be huge, and you have to take into account that I think there are tougher Big Ten road games down the way. When you look at having to go to Nebraska for a night game, You look at having to play in Columbus at the end of the season. There's some games that are going to be very, very difficult for Michigan to win, and I happen to think that the Legends Division representative in the Big Ten championship game very well could have a couple of losses, but you don't want to come out of the gate with one, especially when you have those sort of tougher games, in my opinion, down the road. So really essential not only for Michigan to get a leg up in the Big Ten race and in the Legends Division race, but also wipe out some of that down feeling they had coming out of Notre Dame and a 6-turnover performance.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, last week's presser, Coach Borges said moving forward, he wanted Denard to get 15-plus carries a game, 18 to 20 passing attempts, somewhere in that area, and for Fitz to get his 17 to 20 carries a game. And this week, we're going to face another very tough defense in Purdue. And in order to get those kind of numbers that Coach mentioned, the offensive line is really going to have to get consistent push up front, aren't they?
Oh, yeah. They have to continue to develop. We have not seen any sort of dominant running game coming out of this group so far. And in part, it's because you're having that offensive line that needs to gel as they go along. They've gotten better, but I don't think that they're where they have to be to make this go. I think a couple of things have to happen. Certainly, Denard Robinson has to be able to break free on a couple of long runs to loosen some things up. They have to be able to throw the ball better than they did at Notre Dame. Just earlier in the season made a very cogent observation, and that's simply the fact that every time you throw an incompletion and every time you have a passing performance that isn't good, like you did in Notre Dame, that defense creeps one step closer to the line. Michigan has to be able to run against the stack box at some points, but they also have to be able to loosen that up. So I think it really goes together. Certainly, if you're Purdue and you're that defensive coordinator, you are going to be very, very cognizant of Michigan running the ball, because the last time you saw it, they threw it very poorly. And Michigan has to prove that that was an aberration and that they can hurt you downfield so that, that there are a few more running lanes opened up.
Well, when you look at this Purdue defense, John, even though they gave up big chunks of yardage to Marshall Saturday, Marshall threw 68 times against them. Purdue and their folks think this is their best defense in years. Would you agree with that?
I think it's too early to tell, honestly. I understand the excitement about them because they've got some playmakers up front. They've got some people that can are probably more talented than what we've seen at Purdue in recent years. But I just, you give up that many points to Marshall, you struggle at times. They hung in there at Notre Dame. I will give them great credit for that. But I would, think it's a little early to anoint the Purdue defense until we see them on a consistent basis against Big Ten teams.
Well, John, we've had 2 weeks to work out the kinks and get ready for Purdue. Do you think we're going to see Coach Borges, scale back the offense? He did it about the same time last year and sort of let Denard get back in his comfort zone, running primarily read option.
I think that's a distinct possibility. You certainly don't want to put him in situations where there are too many options, or where there's a lot of that sitting in the pocket and reading. He's worked hard at it. I understand that, and they want to make him as complete a quarterback as he can be. But I think at some point you do scale it back a little bit. All right, first option, second option, it's not there. You tuck it and you take off, because this is a quarterback that can really scare some people and keep them loose with his ability to tuck it away and run with it. Any Michigan fan looking at it will tell you, and I have to believe that the coaches are a little bit the same way. He gets 5-6 seconds in the pocket and then releases down the middle of the field. That scares you somewhat, because those late throws and those throws off the back foot are often the ones that get picked off.
Well, looking at the Purdue offense heading into this game, they've been really inconsistent on offense this year. Caleb Turbush has struggled. Robert Marv coming off another ACL injury. Running back Ralph Bolden, he's been bunged up too. still, this is going to be a good test for a defense featuring a lot of young players that Michigan's throwing into the mix, isn't it?
Oh, you play this many young guys, you don't know exactly what you're going to get, and that's been part of the process going through this non-conference season. I just think that for Michigan, it's coming quickly to a time where they have to decide, okay, who are the guys that can help us the most, and in what situations, and go with that. You can't. I would say there isn't a Big Ten team that has a roster that's been more challenged in the non-conference season. You look at taking on Alabama in that first game, and as painful as that was for those with a rooting interest in Michigan, watching it, that does a lot for a defensive unit to know that you have faced that sort of team coming out and that sort of an offensive line. And then certainly Notre Dame has some weapons, and Michigan had to face a high talent level there. I think they found out a lot about a lot of people. You referenced the young guys. We saw Joe Bolden and James Ross and Mario Ojemudia and so many of these true freshmen that really contributed and can mix in there and get some things done. You saw a guy like Quentin Washington, who is a redshirt junior. I mean, he's been around for a while, but he hasn't been a starter. Here's a guy that goes up in his very first start against that Alabama offensive line, and that can't help but make you better. So I think as you look at this Michigan defense, I really think that it's going to get better and better and better as the year goes on, and that is a big plus in Michigan wanting to challenge in the Legends race.
Well, even though we've had 2 weeks to work out the kinks and for Coach Madison to maybe get a more settled lineup on defense, unless a lot's happened in the last 2 weeks, do you still expect we're going to see a lot of rotation on the defensive line and at linebacker this weekend?
I think certainly on the defensive line, because that's the way Madison operates always. I mean, he loves to have multiple guys in there and keep them fresh and have them go as hard as they possibly can on every play. I mean, that goes all the way back to when he was here in the mid-'90s. That's just how he wants to have it, because and that's the same at several positions. They want their guys going as hard as they possibly can. They'll tell you, receiver, hey, we want as hard as we play and as hard as we block and as all that we want to do. We're going to roll guys in there, and that is definitely the case on the defensive line. I think you'll probably still see the same at linebacker. If these young kids had come in and just not held up their end of the bargain at all, you might see that roster shortened a little bit. But I think they've performed at a level high enough so that we will see more of them.
Our guest at our Michigan Game Day segment today is John Borton, the longtime editor of the Wolverine. John, through the first 4 games, fans have been trying to get a read or a feel on for what type of a team Michigan was going to be this season. And I know myself, and I don't think a lot of us really have a feel yet for the direction this team is headed in. Do you think this team is getting close to, let's say, turning the corner and becoming more consistent on both sides of the ball?
It's hard to say that they're close to turning any corner after you come out of that Notre Dame performance. And that doesn't mean it's not going to happen. But what it does mean is you saw Michigan's passing game as a whole, not just Denard, but passing game as a whole, regress against Notre Dame. You cannot make those kind of mistakes. The offensive line and the protections, they had been very good, but Denard was under a lot of heat at a lot of times in that game. He threw some very bad balls over the middle. We all saw that. The receivers are still learning what they need to do in some cases. You've got some brand new guys out there, even guys that have been around for a while, like Devin Gardner. He still breaks off some routes, and he still needs to get better. So I think it's a potentially explosive offensive team, but it's certainly not a refined one at this point, and it has to take some really solid steps forward. We talked about the defense. I think that's going to come together more quickly than we might expect, and it needs to, because it's going to need to keep Michigan in some ball games, very much like it did at Notre Dame. And meanwhile, if you're the Michigan offense, hey, you cut that from 6 turnovers to 3 in that Notre Dame game. It's a 2-touchdown game in your favor. So I think that it's there. I said earlier, this is a team that could very well come out of the Big Ten or the non-conference season at 2-2, which they did, but also then challenged for the Legends Division Championship and the Big Ten Championship. And I think that is very much still in play. You saw some of the results from Saturday and what these Big Ten teams are doing. I don't think there's a team that stands out there that Michigan can't beat or doesn't have a shot at. But Michigan has issues of its own to get corrected.
At 2-2 coming into the Big Ten season, this then is about what you thought or where you thought Michigan would be, isn't it?
Absolutely. I didn't think that they were going to hold up in that Alabama game. It's a game that their roster isn't ready for yet, and I think that was clearly demonstrated. I thought it would be very difficult to go to Notre Dame under the lights and win that game. There was some hope because of Notre Dame coming off an emotional game up at Michigan State where they got knocked around a little bit, as opposed to how it usually happens, Michigan playing them first. But you just can't turn it over that many times and win a ball game. So 2-2, I'm not at all surprised coming out. And in some years in the Big Ten, if there was a really, really superior team, I would have my doubts about this Michigan team being able to win the Big Ten. At this point, no. You look around, and there are half a dozen teams that could feel like, hey, why not us at this point? And Michigan is certainly one of those.
Well, John, we sort of touched on this at the top of the interview, but when you look at Michigan's schedule after this Saturday, you realize how big the Purdue game is. I mean, a win sets up nicely with a bad Illinois team coming into Ann Arbor, the week after for homecoming, then the huge game with Michigan State. For this team's psyche, especially given the fact we're going to be using so many young players on the road, this really is an important game to win, isn't it?
No, it's a must game, absolute must game for Michigan to win. Coming off, like we said, Notre Dame, to get your confidence back, to deliver a message that, hey, this is a team that intends to compete for the Big Ten championship. You have to go to Purdue and win. You have a bit of a break the week after Illinois. I just don't think that's a good team. I like Michigan's chances against Michigan State at home, but very, very difficult to go out to Nebraska and win. Same thing going to Ohio State at the end of the season. This is I would say a Legends Division race where you can drop a couple, and if they happen in the right spots, you could still be in that championship game. But this Purdue game is not one of those.
No, I think we all agree. This is the springboard game. So heading down to West Lafayette Saturday, what do you see as the keys to victory for Michigan?
Well, I think the real keys to victory for Michigan, getting that offense settled back down and into a rhythm and being able to not only make Purdue respect the passing game and getting Denard Robinson into a groove where he's able to make some short throws and pick up a confidence and be able to run off of that, but also seeing the defense for Michigan take one more stride, and that would be make sure that there aren't the big plays that hurt and that there aren't the mistakes that make a difference even when you're playing well. And Michigan played well at Notre Dame. Let's on defense, but you go from a field goal try to a touchdown when you have interference in the end zone. You don't make the big play at the end when the tight end gets open. Where if that doesn't happen, Michigan gets one more shot at it. Those are the sorts of things that will drive a defensive coordinator crazy, even amid a very strong effort. You got to see those sorts of plays made, and I just think this is a game where, more than anything else, your main guy, and that's Denard Robinson, has to reassert himself as one of the greatest playmakers in the Big Ten this year.
Absolutely. I think it's a big comeback game for Denard Robinson, and we'll find out a lot more this Saturday. Our guest on our Michigan Game Day segment this week, helping us preview the big game down in West Lafayette Saturday, is the longtime editor of the Wolverine, John Borton. John, great to have you on the show. Look forward to having you back.
All right, thanks a lot, guys.
Finally, great to have John Borton on the show. John is the longtime editor of the Wolverine. He's been with them covering all University of Michigan sports since 1991. So thanks again, John. We look forward to having you back on the show soon. Coming up next, we wrap it up for another week on Wolverine Quick Hits with an injury update heading into this week's game and some quick facts about this week's opponent, the Purdue Boilermakers. Here on the Michigan Man podcast on GBMW Go Blue Michigan Wolverine. On Wolverine Quick Hits today, let's start with an injury update. Coach Hoke said he expects everyone that's not out for the year, with the exception of Brandon Moore and maybe Marvin Robinson, ready to go for this Saturday. That includes Brennan Byer, Richard Ashe, Devin Gardner, and Stephen Hopkins. So all in all, pretty good health for the team. Here are some quick facts on this week's opponent, the Purdue Boilermakers. Michigan leads the series 43-14. The Wolverines defeated Purdue last year on October 29th by a score of 36-14. Head coach Danny Hope is in his fourth season and has a 16-21 record at Purdue. The Boilers run a spread offense and a very aggressive 4-3 defense. In 2011, they finished 7-6, 4-4 in the Big Ten. They returned 19 starters, 9 on offense, 9 on defense, and 1 special teams player. They beat Western Michigan in the Little Caesars Bowl 37-31 last year. Key players are quarterback Caleb Turbush and running back Ralph Bolden on offense. Kawan Short may be the best down lineman in the Big Ten, and Ricardo Allen on defense. Observers say this is the best Purdue team since the departure of the very successful Coach Joe Tiller. Don't forget to become a member here at GBMW. Visit www.gbmwolverine.com and sign up for membership today. Benefits include email reminders when a story is published or a mailbag question is answered. You also need to become a member for full participation on our always interesting message board. As a member here on GBMW, you can also take part in our popular Monday Night Live chat with E-Rock Wolverine, Coach BT, Maze Man, Doc for Blue, World's Wolverine, and our very own hockey guru, Jostmeister. The Monday Night Live chat still takes place at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, so check that out next Monday. So join GBMW today and get your daily fix of Maize and Blue news and conversation. Then each Wednesday you can check out the Michigan Man podcast. The show is now available as an Android app, which can be purchased from the Android App Store at Amazon.com. If you are an Apple person, you'll find our app in the Libsyn toolbox at the iTunes App Store. If you listen to the show on your Apple device, please take a minute to give us a review. It really does help a lot. Our listener lines are open 24/7 for your comments. If you'd like to have your Maize and Blue opinion heard, just give us a call at 313-263-4842. Then leave an audio with your thoughts on this football season, the upcoming basketball season, hockey, recruiting, anything that's on your mind. Just give us your name, tell us where you're calling from, and then take off. If you'd rather send us an email, our email address is themichiganmanpodcast@yahoo.com. I'll have both the phone number and the email address in my show notes. So I welcome your thoughts on anything Maize and Blue. Thanks again to our guests today, Mike Carmen from the Journal and Courier in Lafayette, and John Borton, the longtime editor of the Wolverine. Kickoff in West Lafayette is just after 4 p.m. this Saturday. Make sure you join us next week when we'll preview the Wolverines' return to the Big House for the homecoming matchup against the Fighting Illini. Until then, take care of yourself and enjoy the Big Ten opener on Saturday. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. As always, go Blue. Thanks for listening to the Michigan Man podcast on GBMW Go Blue Michigan Wolverine. You can find us on the web at www.gbmwolverine.com. That's www.gbmwolverine.com. For audio posts or other fan feedback, please call our listener line at 313-263-4842. That's 313-263-4842. Email fan feedback to the Michigan Man Podcast at yahoo.com. That's the Michigan Man Podcast at yahoo.com. The Michigan Man Podcast on GBMW Go Blue Michigan Wolverine is produced at the studios of Robin Lynn Productions, Allen Park, Michigan. The Michigan Man Podcast is not affiliated with the University of Michigan. Go Blue!